The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Atlas Chiropractic Center of Escanaba, Michigan, Largent Media, or any of their affiliates or subsidiaries. The material and information presented in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Should you need medical attention or advice, seek out a licensed medical professional or facility in your area. The Tapping Into Uncomfortable with Reade Hubert DC name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service.
Welcome to Tapping Into Uncomfortable, where the podcast host is half a bubble off from being level. Hey, folks, huge mistake that I made in the last podcast. What I actually ended up doing was I ended up pronouncing a word completely wrong for Tapping Into Uncomfortable. And it goes like this. I said it was gyrification. No, that's not how we pronounce it on this show. We pronounce it Ication. Hey, folks, welcome. Well, I want to talk to you about something absolutely fantastic and amazing. And this is a salute to influenza, which is rocking across the country. It looks like it's the worst it's been in 28 years. It's heavily impacted my community. I just want to let you know how amazing and fantastic you are, because it's been around and we've been around. So you actually have 1.8 trillion immune cells in the average human being. Now, that doesn't include some of the organs and some of the other stuff that's used in that. But if you were to take those 1.8 trillion immune cells and you gathered them all up together and you weighed them, it would come in at 2.6 pounds of immune cells. Isn't that absolutely fantastic? 2.6 pounds is what 1.8 trillion immune cells they actually think weighs. So what are we going to talk about today? What is on the menu? For the first time ever, we're going to try to make some sense out of food, which would be processed food and ultra-processed food. Then what we're going to do, we're going to answer the question and answer, is there any other categories of disease or sickness besides the four that I gave you? And then we're going to ask the new question, and we went pretty easy on you because the last one was pretty brutal. So let's get started.
Welcome to That Moment restaurant. It's good to see you back. May I take your order?
Yes, I will have your roasted chicken breast with rosemary seasoning, the garlic mashers with shallots, please, the broccoli lightly steamed with pink sea salt and cracked pepper. I will have the kale salad with raspberry vinaigrette dressing and water to drink.
Do you have a butter preference?
Avocado butter, please. Thank you.
And for you, sir?
She eats like a carnivorous rabbit. First, this booth is smaller than before. But anyway, give me a steak, medium, baked potato. On that potato, put some... Oh, on the steak, make sure you put a bunch of that... I'll have the broccoli limp with a bunch of yellow... On the salad, don't give me any of them croutons. Put on a bunch of... and a little extra... Bring me some of that brown cake with a bunch of... on it.
Anything else? Would you like an appetizer?
Yep. Give me a pile of the nachos and put all the... you can on it. Okay, folks, let's start talking about food. It was very difficult. What do you call food that's not processed or ultra processed? So this is extremely important. In this entire podcast, if there's one thing that you could sit and listen to and actually get, is this fundamental of food. So this is going to be a little deep, but it all makes sense. And if you can grasp this, It makes things so much easier going forward. So you have the 4 T's: thoughts, toxins, trauma, and traits. So this fundamental is you understanding that you were stirred in the mud, you became, you are from the earth, so is all our food. So in order to maintain who you are, to prosper, to move forward, to live, you need the environment that you came from. Does that make sense? It's kind of tough to think about that, but ultimately your body is made and it's designed from the products of the earth. And because of that, you have to maintain by getting some of that back out of the environment. That's the whole purpose of food, especially good food. But they like to use the term whole foods. I don't care for that because of the fact that you could call whole foods, genetically modify it, put it on the shelf. It's still a whole food, but I like the word primal. What was the intent? So when you're going to eat and what your body needs, you have to get it from its food. You use what you want, primal whole foods, as long as you understand. Here's the example. A carrot. Nobody ever really thinks about carrots, correct? So if you actually were to do some homework on the carrot, it's absolutely fascinating when it got its orange color, what colors it originally was thousands of years ago. But ultimately, you take a seed, you put it in the ground, X amount of months, you pick it up, you put it in your mouth, and you eat it. Whatever environment that carrot was in, whatever it was collecting from the soil, from the rain, coming down, the sun, that's what it's full of. And then you eat that. What is the best thing we can possibly do is foods in its natural state and then cooking them properly. When you look at you're actually part of nature, that's how we should eat, as close as you can get to nature. However, as we talk today, you'll see that that's almost impossible. So you have to rely on nature, the environment. Hopefully that food has it when you go to eat it. So that's your ideal. That is it. That is number one. As we go from that point forward, things get less nutritious because of the environment that these things are in. So once again, let's go back to the lonely carrot. You plant it, you put it in the ground. It's supposed to be full of nutrition. Whatever the ground is, you don't check the soil. You don't worry about the water falling on it. You eat it. And what you're hoping for is that in the environment, the carrot is able to give your body actually what it needs, because there's essential nutrients and minerals that if you do not have them, that you need to get from food, you're going to get sick and you're going to pass away. Ultimately, folks, that's whole foods, and that's the primal foods. And remember, the environment that comes from is what you're putting into your body. That's what I've been barking at everybody for, the fact that we fertilize with PFAS. That's in the food. We then get it into our body. If you did your homework from the previous podcast, look up what happened to the Michigan farmer with cows. He couldn't even sell his cattle. What do you do with it? Now, let's get into processed food. So let's take that carrot. Let's plant it by the millions, or in this case, hundreds of thousands on X amount of acres in America. And your whole job was to get that to the market. So you plant these things, all of a sudden, here comes a machine, pulls them out, washes them, peels them, cuts them up, seals them in a plastic bag. But before they seal them in a plastic bag, something interesting happens. They run chlorinated water over them. Now, the reason they run chlorinated water is simply to wash it off, but also there's an antibacterial part of that in the chlorinated water. Then they seal it in a plastic bag, and then they bring it to the market, and they throw it on the shelves. That would be minimally processed food. When you look at it, you go, okay, that's not as healthy as directly out of the environment. As long as the environment is excellent, now we're going into the processed part of the food. Now, that's a ton of our food. That's your fresh vegetables. Those are your fresh fruits, that kind of stuff. The goal is when you do this minimally processed food, you start to add stuff to it. You may start to add some additives, other processing things to give it a shelf life, but your body still does really well with that for nutrition. Because remember, no matter what you put in your body is still going to try to extract exactly what it can to survive. And then the side effect is what's been added to this and how detrimental it can be to your body. So ultimately, now it's about packaging and materials. And we talked to you before, there's roughly 14,000 different chemicals involved in the processing of getting our food to market, of which 25% are actually found in the human body. It's not so much the food at this point as much as what's added to it to keep it on the shelf. That now becomes less ideal nutrition, but there's still nutrition in it. Here's what it comes down to, folks. As we had spoken before, How do you make it so that the masses can be fed, it can be cheap, increase the shelf life, make a profit for the farmer, but still feed you without the side effect of diabetes type 2, without the side effect of diseases? What's the answer? Because if you look and we go from actual nutrition of the carrot to a processed carrot, it gets less expensive in this country. It's a very odd thing. Now we're getting into the most popular category, which is ultra-processed food. So now we take that carrot out of the bag and we... But essentially, folks, when we get into ultra-processed food, that's what we're doing to our food. Now, is all ultra-processed food bad? No. Your smoothie stuff that you throw in there is ultra-processed. Your supplementation is ultra-processed. You see where we're coming from? But with an ultra-processed food, what you do is you now have essence of carrot, and then what you start to do is now you process it, and you add a whole bunch of stuff to it. You add color, additives. You enrich it. You fortify it. You add stuff to preserve the shelf life for a couple years on some of that stuff. When we do that, are we now worried about nutrition? No. Can your body still get some nutrition out of a diet that's 68% ultra-processed food? Yes. But what is the side effect of eating something that is marketed and prepared solely for your senses? Your eyes, ears, nose, throat. Taste good, look good, sound good. And then what happens in the human mind with this ultra-processed food when it's actually designed so that you will like it and you will crave it? This is the issue. And the other issue is this is the cheapest part of our food chain. The healthiest is the most expensive. Ultra-processed food is the least expensive. And this is where we're surviving. This one thing alone, how are we going to change this? How are we going to give something shelf life? And then how are we going to get that nutrition? Very interesting scenario that we found ourselves in. Are we going to pay for good food? And then how do we do that? How do we get it out of the ground and get it to the market and minimally process it and still make it affordable? That's one of the reasons we have ultra-processed food. So when I bark and I holler at you about ultra-processed food, what I am talking about is the marketing of addiction with this food. The addition of everything that makes it taste so good. That's the problem. So when I talk to you about ultra-processed food, supplementation, some of it is very good. Your body can get stuff from it. But what I'm talking about is the stuff that automatically is designed that is not good for you. And that's what an ultra-processed food is. So the question is, folks, we talked about the lateral pterygoid opening up your mouth. Is it truly voluntary when ultra-processed food is made and designed to make it so good? So organically wrapping up the previous unsprayed word salad that I just gave you, faithfully but imperfectly, choosing food closest to its form and function puts you at a higher chance of being healthier. Choosing food farther away from its form and function puts you at risk of sickness and disease. Every day in every town and school is a reminder of taking our bodies for granted. Science at this time cannot even replace the lowly carrot, let alone something as wonderful as you. Be good to yourself and start there. So let's answer these 5 questions. Maybe even 6 questions. So let's answer this. Number 1, who? You. It's your time. Number 2, what? Food for nutrition, not pleasure. Number 3, when? Now. Number 4, where? Your mind and kitchen. How? One bite at a time. And number 6, why? Only you can answer that. But I ask you this, why not you? Let's get into the deepest question we've ever asked is, are there any other categories of cause besides the 4 that we gave you? No, not at this point. There is a possibility as we continue with massive research in the quantum realm that there is a possibility that something may actually be another cause. Or it gets even deeper in the four categories that some of the quantum stuff, the really tiny things that you can't see. Because what ended up happening is we've done a really good job with all the big things in the world. Not in the universe, in the world, but we're having a very difficult time below the atoms and all that stuff. So there is a possibility that in the future, that could be another cause. The new question is the germ theory valid? And what I mean by that is, can the germ theory be valid and stand totally on its own, that bacteria and viruses are the causes solely of those particular sicknesses? So, is the germ theory valid? So, as always, I want you to be happy, I want you to be healthy, and I want you to just be. This whole podcast is based on a book. Be on the lookout for 4 T's to a Better You, a blueprint for identifying and addressing the 4 causes of sickness. You'll be able to buy it just about everywhere.